Hi everybody, my name is Alan. On behalf of the crew, I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Bridging Heaven and Earth. You know, this life, this human life, is an extraordinary thing for all of us. I mean, not one of us doesn't have the day-to-day activities, doesn't have the experiences with love and lack of love and success and failures and joys and sorrows. And at the root, somehow, some way, in some corner of our being, every one of us knows there's something grand with the potential grandness of this human life. That we know that there's an experience of so much joy and so much connection and so much oneness. And what do I mean by that connection or that oneness or that joy? I mean, most of you know, have watched the show before, and on the opening, you've seen dedicated to the oneness, dedicated to an experience of something infinite and something inclusive and something full of love and full of joy for a human being. And when I use that word, and we use it on the show, which we do literally on every show, and that's the intent of every show. I mean, it's really to spread the vibration of love, but it's also to give that vibration, that knowledge, that intuition, that recognition, that realization that there is such a thing as oneness that we can have. There is such a thing as a connection to, in a sense, all that is. So when we talk about oneness, we know that an experience is available in this human body for all of us, which is so full, which is so comprehensive, which in a way is so incomprehensible to the human mind that it, you know, vastness is a word used, or infinite. And yet the experience of it is grander. The experience of it is so profound that it's almost like, you know, the first few times you have it, you weep, in a sense, of the joy of the recognition of who you really are. And then the more you have it, then the reality is more strengthened and more realized of what you really are. And that's when somebody like a Jesus or a Krishna or a Buddha or a Muhammad, the roots of the religions that fight each other, that, you know, thy name is love. You know, that is what we're created from. That infinite power is that love. And then you could say the Father and I are one. God and I are one. The Goddess and I are one. Because there's nothing else. There is a oneness. And then the experiment of this human species, this earth experiment, is to come home to that recognition, to come home into that realization, to come home into that knowing, where you too can say, the Goddess and I are one, the Father and I are one. Because there isn't any other. And as we look around this planet, we would feel that way about all the seeming separates and know that we are one. And that's, you know, what every show of Bridging, we were talking earlier about, you know, the intent of this show. And if you've seen shows recently, the newer shows, I mean, we just finished the 200th show. And to me, I talked about during that show what a miracle it was. That really, I mean, with a volunteer crew, an unbelievably dedicated volunteer crew, week after week, year after year, month after month, comes with the intention to spread the vibration of love. And the miracle that we never missed a show, I mean, thank God. And the intention has always been that purity. The intention with the egos and with the trials and tribulations and the traumas of everyone involved, because we're all in human bodies and we all have them. But the intention is dedicated to that infinite, that oneness, that inclusion, And isn't that what we as human beings want, is to feel included and to feel infinite? Wouldn't it be glorious if we all felt like that? Would we fight the way we do? Would we be greedy the way we are? Clearly no. So, you know, again, now's the time to rededicate, to re-pray, to however we do our however we do our lives, however we commit to that infinite, to rededicate to get to the root of the infinite. Whatever Muhammad said, there is a root to that. Whatever Krishna said, there is a root. They had some experience. Whatever Jesus, whatever came from the Jesus, the Christ, he had an experience. Moses had an experience. These people who we talk about, who we revere, they had an experience. And that experience was love. That experience was oneness. So again, tonight we have somebody whose life is dedicated to that. You know, I've said that probably 200 and some odd times, and that's who comes on Bridging. That's who makes it to this set. Rebecca Skeele is an extraordinary spiritual teacher. She does worldwide workshops and trainings to teach personal growth, to teach practical spirituality. She's written an extraordinary book, You Can Make It Heaven. And her life, again, is dedicated to the recognition, to the experience, to the sharing, to feel love and share it. Simple. And our lives can be simple in that way. And again, we have these extraordinary music videos. A good friend of Bridging from Germany, this extraordinary musician, Kailash. As you know, I'm not so good with names at all. And as most of you know, recently you've been watching the shows, we're in the middle of this extraordinary international art project where we're getting pieces from all over the world. We got this vision to do this art project where we contact all the people we know and just spread the energy that, you know, what an experience it would be for everybody involved and the planet itself. If people, all these creative people, some professional artists, some not, of all ages, from 5 to 90 at this point, have produced original pieces based on the theme Bridging Heaven Earth from all over the world, and they send them here, and we have art shows, and we'll show 3 pieces on this show, 2 pieces of jewelry and 1, you know, painting that have been produced for the Bridging Heaven Earth art project. So, you know, again, it's an opportunity for us to come together and to come into more of an understanding of love, of oneness, of truth, of God, of, you know, of what it means to be a human being, truly what it means to be a human being. And that at some point, really, we're all lights of the world, and we have to start shining them. We have to start being that light of the world and manifesting unrelentingly that love. So join me in a short meditation, then we'll have Rebecca and the videos and the art, and, you know, really it's an opportunity for us all to come together. So please join me. Okay, thanks. So, you know, if it sounded heavy, I mean, in a way, you know, our lives are serious in a way, you know. I mean, part of what makes us heavy is that we take ourselves so seriously. So, you know, there's an opportunity for love. It's beautiful. It's the way it's meant to be. It's simple. It's pure. It's childlike. And we can just laugh and collaborate and enjoy having physical bodies together. So there's really an opportunity. So the first piece we're going to do is Kailash from Germany, an extraordinary musician. He plays just this wonderful inner world music, and he uses sound therapy and music as a gateway into that oneness, into that love. And this first piece he does extraordinary didgeridoo work, so it's Kailash. Yeah, hi, welcome back. So yeah, that was some music by Kailash, huh? Yeah, the didgeridoo is just an incredible, it's the oldest wood instrument, I think, in the world. So it's, when he plays it, it's extraordinary. So what you're seeing in between Rebecca, hi Rebecca, welcome.
Hi Alan, thank you.
What you're seeing in between Rebecca and I is these two extraordinary pieces that have been sent in for the Bridging Heaven and Earth Art Project. The one on the left is called Angel Wings, and it's by Sabrina Johnstone. She's been a tremendous supporter of bridging for many years, and I'm sure you'll see it through, you know, the cameras running through it, how extraordinary it is as a piece. And the piece on the right is this piece, the Bridging Heaven and Earth necklace by Lumari. It's got all kinds of quartz and amethyst, and just another extraordinary piece. And it's an example of the amazing creative talents and differences that have been coming in from all over the world, with the intention of their manifesting a piece based on the theme Bridging Heaven and Earth. So, you know, again, if anyone's interested in joining us with that, you know, please give us a call. So Rebecca, welcome again. So I'm glad you're here.
Thank you, Alan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's amazing. So your book, You Can Make It Heaven. Mm-hmm. What do you mean by like heaven? How can you make it? Why aren't we there? Go girl.
Okay. Well, You Can Make It Heaven is a manual for really co-creating heaven on earth. And when I'm speaking of heaven, I'm really speaking about the inner heaven. At first, my approach to all this is, and I want to say my approach is really how I came to this. So the book is really about how it's been presented to me. I, like everyone else, grew up with heaven on earth. You know, what is this concept? And whether or not you were raised in you know, a religion of some kind, you know, heaven on earth was always this thing that we were reaching for, or perhaps we experience when we leave the body. Right, after. Yeah. So I'm really talking about accessing the inner heaven, the indwelling of what you refer to as the oneness, or the loving, or the spiritual essence of who we are. And then being able to not only live in that, but bring it out into the world. So my approach is from essence to form. And it's a very practical way to do it, because one of the things in my life that has been very important to me has been that if I am going to embody this oneness, if I want to experience it, if I want to be in the vibration of it, if I want to know it, I also want to be able to live in it in my day-to-day life. You know, I don't,
not just at the mountaintop.
No, not just at the mountaintop. I want to be able to live it every moment of the day, if I choose that, if I focus on that, if that is my intention. And so my work has been about, well, how do you do that? How do you do that? And so when I began to awaken back in my early 30s, and all the, you know, the stuff hit the fan, as they say, and all the things fell around me, and everything that I was holding on to in the world became tumbling down, and this calling that I had up until then really been ignoring and distracting myself from.
In other words, before that, I mean, we talked earlier and you said that you had this, you know, normal life, and a good normal life.
I had a very good normal life.
Children, a wonderful marriage in a sense,
right.
A wonderful life, a big
plenty
home,
of money,
plenty
right.
of all the things.
Right.
But even before that, something in you was like crying out. You knew that there was like a calling for you, an intention that wasn't being met in that form at that time.
Well, I have to say I'm like everyone else. You know, I entered my 20s, mid-20s I was married, late 20s I was having my children. I was living a very wealthy lifestyle. I was living what a lot of people consider heaven on earth, right? Plenty of materiality, plenty of things to do, all of that. And yet what happened in the midst of that was waking up in the middle of the night in anxiety, in cold shakes, thinking, what is going on? I'm having an anxiety attack in the middle of this wonderful life I'm living in. You know, something isn't, and of course I would ignore it. I mean, you know, I'd wake up the next morning.
Did you start taking pills? I mean, there were a lot of anti-anxiety pills on this.
Well, no, but I distracted myself other ways. You know, I had plenty of money to spend. I had places to go. You know, when I got, into that anxiety, I'd say, oh, well, let's go on a vacation. Where shall we go now?
I'm stressed out.
Right. I'm stressed out, or I'm bored. Maybe that's it. I'm bored. So let's go do something, And I would throw myself into nonprofit work and that kind of thing. Anything to distract myself from what was beginning to rumble inside of me. Yes.
You look back and it was clearly an awakening.
Yes, and it was a stirring that was going on. And I want to say this for stirrings and awakenings. They're not comfortable.
Sometimes.
My experience has been they are not comfortable. It's not this, you wake up in the morning in bliss all of a sudden. It's like, no, things start to fall apart. I question my own sanity.
Certainly the people around you.
Yes, I would sit and talk to my friends, and I would, break into tears, and I go, what is going on? And so,
go shopping, girl.
Yeah, exactly. Well, go out and buy a new outfit.
What the hell? You had that outfit for 3 days already.
Well, that was really my reality at the time.
Understand.
And anything else that was coming in was very frightening. It was very frightening. And looking back on it now, I know that that's what it was. I was responding to it with fear. And yet,
which is not unusual for change and newness and old paradigms breaking down and all that.
Yes, it is not. And yet when I began to go, and at the same time though, there was something that was starting to happen in the life I was in, like, wait a minute, is this all there is? This is supposed to bring me happiness. Why am I not happy? This is supposed to be fulfilling me. Why am I not fulfilled? So in the midst of all that, and that took about 18 months to 2 years to all dissolve. Everything from the marriage to the lifestyle to where I was living. I moved. I left major support system. Everything came toppling down.
You moved from where you had been brought up, where the family was, where your husband was, literally across the country, almost all the way across.
I moved into a whole different environment, into a place that was foreign to me in just about every way.
And it was fearful and exhilarating at the same time?
Exactly. And by the time I was moving and driving across, heading west, I knew that wherever I was going was that was going to bring forward something. I didn't have any idea, but it was something I just knew I had to go.
Were you reading any spiritual books or tapes?
Oh, sure.
During this...
In the 2 years that everything started coming down around me, people would say, well, check out the Course in Miracles, or listen to this tape, or read this book. So yes, I was starting to really hunger for that kind of thing. And I think that's also very normal. There's a hungering, there's a searching. So you read this book and you go hear this person and you listen to that and you go hear this channeler and this psychic and it's like a hunger. It's like, oh, wait a minute. There's something that I have up until now not been experiencing and acknowledging in my life. And in the front of my book, you mentioned my book, You Can Make It Heaven, there's a picture of those magic eye pictures, all those dots on the page. And yet if you look at them long enough, something else starts to come forward. Well, that's what was happening in my life. The dots on the page were beginning to scramble. Mm-hmm. And something else was emerging. But I couldn't tell what it was at that time. I didn't know.
You didn't have enough experience in that area. It was just all a blur.
Yes, it was. But I knew something else. And so that's what I was starting to tune into.
Would you say that faith was growing, that this was really good and this was really important and this was really like in your path to your destiny in a way? Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. It was awakening the part of me which I now refer to as the oneness. I refer to it as our divine nature, our divinity, the sacred, the spirit of us, which up until then I was pretty much living in the human nature life. And the human nature life, is full of all wonderful kind of sensual experiences, but it's also full of a lot of drama and trauma. And I was very much into the story of my life and the drama and trauma of my life.
Can wear you out.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Really.
And I was being beat up by it and the emotional and the mental that went along with it. So what was emerging, though, was the divine nature, the spiritualness, or the loving. And I remember, tell a story about the loving, about love, is the first time loving was ever really presented to me in the way like, this is the truth of who you are. Instead of having the experience of, I wanted to bolt for the door. I was scared to death. It's like when we really get the reality that that is who we are and what this life is about. A lot of times it's like,
well, the ego is just
whoa.
that part of us that, you know, is
exactly.
not in recognition of that. It's just
No.
like, get out of here. This could be the end of me.
Yes,
This
yes.
could be trouble.
Yes. And it's almost also, I think it's that place inside of us that all of a sudden wants that so badly that it's kind of like,
Yeah,
oh, wait a minute,
well,
don't show it to me. You
We're
know?
insane in
Yeah.
a way. Yeah, we're completely insane about it.
So that all happened. It all started awakening. And from that, of course, I went on a very sincere...
And you had fairly young children at that point, right?
Oh, they were 2 and 5 at the
So
time.
you had a
that
lot
this
of earthly responsibilities in this time of questing.
Absolutely, yes. It wasn't like I could just drop everything and
Go
go
to
join
a
a
mountain.
yeah, right, a mountain, a monastery, or
Right.
something like that. And no,
So you had to make it practical and make it part of
Yes.
an everyday world.
Yes,
So I
I
mean,
did.
your spoke on the wheel was, say, different than Mahatma Ji or somebody
Right.
like that. Yeah, it's
Exactly.
interesting.
Yeah.
How, I mean, like I said at the opening, I mean, it's for everybody.
Yes,
And how do we all get there? That's what's so interesting.
Yes.
To meet all these people and hear all their stories, you know. It's,
yes. Well, and yes, and so mine was very practical, and maybe that's one of the reasons that I talk about it very practically, is because I did have small children, and I did then have to go get a job. I got divorced and had to work and had to get back in the job force.
what is this?
You know, and it's like, yeah, okay, here we
Right.
go. And at the same time, though, there was this really deep spiritual undercurrent that was beginning to awaken inside of me. And my heart was expanding, and I was having heart-opening experiences, and I was finding, you know, truth, and I was really following it. And then I began to saying, okay, well, if this is the truth of who I am, what does that really mean to me in my life? What does that practically mean to me in my life? And how do I begin to remember that more than I forget it? Or awaken
Yeah, how can
more?
I change the momentum so that that's my reality
Yes.
more and more? Yeah, no,
Yes.
it's an interesting...
Yes, so what I began to do was really take a look at this whole awakening into the truth of who we are, the oneness of who we are, and how to live that. And I call it self-mastery in my book, because to me we start to master the parts of us that want to distract us, and the parts of us that put us in fear, and the parts of us that go into the drama and trauma, or go back asleep, or get into addictions, or that kind of thing. And again, not judging any of that, but more having loving compassion for those
Yeah,
parts
we all
of
know
us.
how to go there.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Yes, we
I mean,
do.
anybody who says they don't, you haven't looked hard enough. You know? They're
yeah.
going to explode at any minute. That's my body, you know.
Well,
I mean, if you're in a human body, we've, you know, doing the show so long, we've met some really extraordinary people, but as you get to know them, they got their places, you know.
well, yes, we all have
Just
human
right.
bodies here, and we
I
all
know.
have things
Right.
that we're working through, and the lessons that we're learning and
Right.
working through all that.
Right.
And one of the things that I do in the world is counselor, and I've been doing it for 17 years, and I've yet to meet anybody
Right.
that doesn't have something that they're working
Somewhere
with.
along the line.
Yeah, that they're working with. And so once we begin, though, to master that, and we master it in a loving way, and that's the really important key here. A lot of times, a lot of people come to me and go, well, you know, I know this stuff. How come I'm still, you know, dealing with this? Or I thought I was through with that. How come this is up again in my life? And that key in there I always find is, I say, well, are you loving it yet? You know, and they look at me and they go, what do you mean love it? You know, I'm supposed to get rid of it. I'm supposed to fix it, right? I'm supposed to fix me. I'm
ruining
supposed
my
to
life,
change me,
don't you
right?
know
Exactly.
that?
Can we just put it somewhere? And no,
Right.
we love it. And as we love it, it transforms and becomes a dance.
Would you call it loving it in a way or looking at it neutrally? I mean, there have been a lot of ways to describe it.
Yeah.
So why don't you actually go into how you would,
Sure.
you know, think about that particular thing?
Yeah, when I say loving, I'm really talking about several steps here. Usually the first step that I present and is actually observing it. When we really can observe, there is a neutrality that comes forward. So we unattach from it, and we become...
It's not so us.
Right.
Right. Okay.
And we become impersonal to it, right? Then the next thing that we look at is accepting. Maybe we don't like it. Maybe we're not condoning it. We're just accepting it. Like, it's here. It is. And I'm going to stop judging it. Because it's the judgment that sticks it to us.
Yeah, it adds power to it.
Yes,
yeah, right.
it is. It's the judgment. So then after that, it's the compassion for, oh, here's a part of me that reacts in fear, or here's a part of me that goes into hurt and disappointment, or here's a part of me that goes into anger, or whatever it is. Let me have compassion for that. And then I work a lot with self-forgiveness. Self-forgiveness of the judgment. Because the judgment is, I find, what continues to bring it up in our life. And see, all of that to me is the loving. All of that. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, along the way, we might, I might really work, or I might have a client really work with acceptance, you know, which is practice acceptance.
So really it depends on at what stage they're in
Yes.
dealing with that particular issue.
Yes, yes. And I find with myself as well as working with people that it's really getting down to the, have you really forgiven the judgment of this? And I hear it over and over and over again. How can I forgive myself? This was not okay. This was bad. This was wrong. And I'm saying, forgive the judgment of it. What if it was for the learning of it? What if it's for the loving of it? What if you can love that, you can love your neighbor?
Who's making the same stupid gesture every day. No, I mean, the only way you can have compassion for anyone else is if you have compassion for yourself, for being human and your human frailty.
That's right. And what if you can love somebody else that you see that you say, you know, you have a judgment about? In other words, that's the way, in my experience.
It doesn't mean you want that person to live with you. It doesn't
No.
mean you want that person to be dating your daughter. I mean, any of those things. Because
Exactly.
certain actions,
Yes.
you know, you understand their nature, but doesn't mean you think that they're the greatest action ever on the planet.
Yeah. When we're talking about loving here, we're talking about the spiritual love.
Right.
We're talking about the acknowledgement and respect and honoring of all expression. We're not necessarily talking about the emotional, you know, loving, you know, I need you near me kind of love. We're really talking about the loving that comes from the spiritual heart.
Right. Well, you know what we'll do? We'll see the second Kailash video, and then we'll come back, and maybe give some, you know, different tools and different ways of, you know, coming into that recognition and that, you know, surrender and all that.
Great.
Okay, so the second video by Kailash, actually, one of the people on the crew is German, says it would be Kailash if I was saying it properly, which I'm probably not even saying it right this time. But this time he's going to be doing some extraordinary music with flute and drums. And then we're going to have a beautiful piece of, a beautiful painting by Kathy McCartney on the set, and you're going to see that, and we'll be back with Rebecca. So Kailash, it's magnificent, inner world music. Hi everybody, well welcome back. So Kailash's second video is really powerful. So the picture you're seeing in between Rebecca and I this time is another Bridging Heaven and Earth international art project piece that came in. She lives, Kathy McCartney lives in, I think half in Northern California and half in Hawaii, and this is called Big Island Nights, and I think she did it when she was in Hawaii. It's an extraordinary piece. So again, the art project's for everybody. It's inclusive, so if anybody's interested, please contact us. So Rebecca, you were talking at the end of the last segment about like how you came into that knowing that reality, and then how you were trying to make it natural, make it so in harmony with what you did and are that it would just be something you did all the time. Why don't you talk a little about that?
That to me is the piece of the soul, and the way that I talk about it and the way that I experience it is as, again, going back to all those dots on the page and what's starting to show up. So I'm starting to see this thing and it's coming into form, and I'm going, oh, what is this? What is the nature of this? And it is the nature of the soul, and the soul, to me, the nature of it is expansion and growth and revelation. So the revelation of myself living as a spiritual being and really shifting that paradigm for myself, really beginning to not see myself as a human being anymore, but a spiritual being, and really allowing all the parts of me to start experiencing that and wake up to that and have that experience. That's a process.
Well, it doesn't have to be. I mean, remember, it could be that almost instantaneously, that recognition, it could be you've done 100 years of work or play before that. It's hard to say, but at one moment you're there. One moment it's a reality for you.
Well, it is, except that what I found was I would have the reality, and then 2 weeks later, it's like, what happened to that? Where did that experience go? See, and my experience has been that we have these breakthroughs, these glimpses, these aha moments, these experience of the oneness, the open heart, the, whatever you want to call it, and then all of the past conditioning of who we are begins to, again, muddy the waters. So we need to clear that out, clear that out, clear that out. So a lot of times now when I'm working with someone, we're not talking about healing anymore. We're talking about clearing. To me, this is one of the new things that all of us are moving into. It's like, what do I need to clear out of the way for me to be able to really stand in the presence of that inside of me, with me, and be in it. And then my doing comes from that being. So it's a matter of clearing it, clearing that limiting belief, or clearing that past conditioning, or clearing that perception. And it's the perceptions of who we are, to me, that continue to get, well, again, I'm just seeing that image again. It's like, it's etc. It's like once I get a picture of this, then I've got to let it go. Because it's that thing of once we think we know what this is, or what it is to live a spiritual life, or what that's supposed to look like, it's like, let it go. Because it's the next revelation. It's the next revelation.
How do we stay that fluid, that born again, that new in every moment? Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Well, my experience, again, is that there, for me, what is foundational to that is some kind of spiritual practice that really connects me to that. And so...
On an ongoing basis.
On an ongoing basis, on a daily basis. That's like one of the main pieces that I put into my life.
And which ones do you do?
I do a inner chanting of the names of God. It's a path of light and sound. So it's really about working with sound as well as light and connecting with the multidimensionality of who we are, which is beyond, you know, the physical form, into whatever you want to call it, the higher self, the soul, the Christ consciousness, you know, makes no difference to me what you call it. And so that's the path that I do, and it really grounds me into that experience. And then it's about beginning to bring it conscious in every moment. So a lot of times, like what I'll do is I'll walk around during my day and I'll just ask myself, if heaven is present, what are you present to? Are you present to the heaven that's present or not? And so it's again a constant refinement of where is my attention. And then also I work with intention in my life. And intention to me is like the guiding light. It's like the inside light that's shining out. And it's like, what am I following? You know, what am I following in my life? And what I want to follow is that. I want to follow that. So when I go out of balance, you know, I have a, you know...
You remember when you did.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And
if we don't go out a couple of times over a period, it's probably surprising.
Well, you know, the human nature is our teacher. So I go out of balance. I have a fight with my husband, or, you know, my child, one of my adult children calls me and they're in the middle of something and I start getting worried about them, or maybe my bank account all of a sudden goes below what I want and up comes my fear of, you know, lack or something like that. Anytime I go out of balance, to me, self-mastery is not about going out of balance. It's about how quickly do I remember, wait a minute, I have a different choice here. And I want to bring myself back into balance inside myself, into the perfection, we talked about that earlier, or the heaven that's present. And then I can go from there. And that doesn't mean that I don't have upset and fear and anger and hurt and all of that into my life, but it's like I'm also really aware of what is the choice to move out of that.
You've experienced the harmony enough to know when disharmony is there sooner than later.
Yes. In fact, I can, you know, feel it viscerally. And the other thing,
I know what you mean.
we work, you know, my work used to be a lot of talk therapy, and it's very, very little of that now. When I work with someone, I'm working with their energy fields, I'm working with where does that need to be cleared, I'm working with the blocks and the consciousness, and, you know, as I get clearer, then I can help facilitate someone else getting clear. And someone said something to me the other day, we were talking about, just kind of the whole arena of therapy. And, you know, to me, what I want to help someone, what I want to facilitate in someone is them finding their truth. Not my truth, not the truth that they read in some book somewhere. I want to help them find their truth. And that to me is a matter of clearing everything that's in the way of that. So that, you know, leads us to co-creation, which is the other piece. And I know you and I were, you talked about the bridging between heaven and earth, and how you see that as maybe the symbol of the for me, that's a symbol of co-creation.
Right, yeah, different wording for the experience of like this new paradigm that's forming, that's in the, you know, that's formed, that's that we're all walking over in a way.
Yeah, and to me, it is co-creation. That is the new paradigm. And
so define that.
Well,
Co-creating.
okay. Co-creation for me is co-creating between the divine nature and the human nature in a dance that asks us into higher levels of cooperation. And the highest level of cooperation for me, the words I would say, is the highest good for all concerned. And you know, when I'm working here on this planet, considering the highest good in anything I do, you and I sitting here working with a client, writing my next book, teaching my next workshop, wanting people to come to my workshop.
Or walking down the street.
Oh, walking down the street or standing in a grocery line. It's like, how do I begin to really line up with the highest good? And what is the highest good anyway? And it's all of...
I thought it was a question for me. It's like, oh my God, I would have to answer this.
Well,
But the tables have been turned and I'm screwed now.
well, you know, that's one of the things that I teach a course now, and that's one of the things I pose to
So
us.
how would you answer it?
Well, the highest good is an ongoing revelation. It's really about saying, what is the highest good here? What is the highest good for all concerned? And ask me to let go more and more and more of what I desire, the attachment of desire, and therefore go more into my preferences, but at the same time let it go. So you know that thing that all of us have heard, at least I've heard, for many, many, many years.
Where'd your southern accent go? That's
well, it's in
I
there.
want to know it that way.
It's in there
She
somewhere.
grew up in Louisiana.
It's in there.
All
It's in
right,
there.
I know.
Let go and let God.
All right.
Okay, so it's that, you know, another way to say that is be patient and relax. And that's not easy.
Not always easy. Well, when ideas are flipping around, if you're just there and you know, we talk about what you're describing in a way as love in motion.
Oh,
You know,
nice, yes.
You know, how do you get to that place where wherever you move, it's just, and you have no concept, how would love move? You don't know.
Yes.
You know,
You
you don't have a concept. You're born again, not in a religious sense, but
Right.
that you're just new. So,
Exactly.
so it's always a new paradigm.
It's always new. It's always that revelation, ongoing revelation.
Yeah, you've woken up in this bed, but it's like it's a new morning.
Yes.
You know, you've done this show 2 million times, but it's still a new show.
Exactly.
You know, energetically, because it's all different.
Exactly.
Always.
Uh-huh. And if we're following that love in motion, which, you know, is again the soul to me, it's like tomorrow morning when I wake up, it is a new revelation.
Has to be.
Yes. So that's what keeps
Well, you're not carrying the concept of who you were before.
No.
You know what I mean? There's not all this personal history and all that stuff.
And you know, that's a really hard one for us to get to as human beings, because we love our stories and we love...
Well, after a while, they really can get... You know, they get old.
Yeah. Yeah,
but it's all we know.
Yes.
I mean, until we've had enough experience of that, you know, it's like leaning on a rubber cane. You know, the life we live is like a rubber cane, and we keep falling on it.
Yeah.
So until we experience what I would call rubbing against the magnet of infinity, and we realize more and more the momentum.
Yes.
And then we want to trust that more.
Yes.
So the other one is not as good, not as fun, not as light. And so it's almost like we're not really choosing it because the momentum is so strong, you know, that we're going towards the light. You know, the light is, and then at some point we could say the Father and I are one, the Goddess and I are one.
Well,
because
and we become
because we've recognized that enough, even though every once in a while, it's like, you know, we forget, let's say, but you know, our momentum is that way.
Yes.
The thrust of our
It's
lives.
a becoming.
Right.
It's a becoming. And as we go toward it, we also become it. And
Well, at different moments, our recognition is that we are of it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? More and more and more.
yes.
So
And every little cell inside of us
it's starting to resonate
has
with
to
that.
resonate with that. And so that's the ongoing revelation of it. And that's the co-creative process. And then how do you do it in the form? Well, we're learning that. We're really learning
And
that.
yeah, in this physical body with, you know, cars and taxes and relationships and parents and illnesses and wars and, you know, to live in that love and motion. But, you know, at some point it becomes simple because you wouldn't know when you're just there.
Yes.
So unless you have a concept of how love and motion would be, how consciousness would be, you know, would you eat meat if you were, you know, would you do this if you were conscious? And if you have no idea,
And it's teaching us, always.
to
It's
surrender,
teaching us, yes.
let go. Let go, let God.
Let go, let God. Yes, absolutely. So this path is, well, path, you know.
Right.
This,
We're using words. It is a talk show.
I know. It's
At
like,
some point, it's
we got to we got to use these words, don't we?
Right.
This path is the ongoing revelation of the self, myself to myself. And in doing that, then I can then manifest that.
You are going to, because you're in a physical body. If you're having that experience, whether you're in the line, whether you're up a mountain, you're going to, you know what I mean? You're vibrating it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Even if you never did an action.
Yes.
But us Westerners generally going to do actions.
Well, and yes, people say, well, what do I do?
Don't worry
Tell me
about
what
it.
to do.
Don't worry.
What's my purpose?
Right.
What should I be doing? And exactly, it's like you are doing it.
Right.
The being is the doing.
Right.
Just be it.
And then you'll see.
And the doing will follow.
Don't worry. You
Wash
will do
those dishes
right.
or,
you know, Mr. Miyake or something, whatever.
Yeah. It doesn't really matter. And that's also hard, I think, for us Westerners to get. And
Yeah, because there's always a goal. You know, and then the Easterners talk about the journey and all that.
Yes.
The journey is the goal.
Yes, absolutely.
Because, I mean, you know, we were talking earlier, going from the infinite to the infinite is where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
But to come into that recognition, you know, and to not have, you know, with the watches and the clocks and the, you know, time and space.
Mm-hmm.
How do you live in time and space and not really experience time and space?
Mm-hmm.
That's a conundrum.
Yeah, and that to me is all, again, this unfolding of this co-creatorship and taking it on and what this is about. So it's a very exciting time to be in a body, embodying this process.
It's
because
magnificent.
we really are bridging it.
Right.
And we are the, you know, the bridging people who are here doing it and writing the Holy Scripture and writing it in our everyday life and
Putting it on television.
putting it on television
whole
and putting
thing.
it down on books and
Right.
tapes and, you know, out there and on the internet and all that kind of stuff. You know, we are the Holy Scripture that is being written right
Amen, sister.
now. Amen.
You know, it's amazing. I know you're going to be surprised, but the show is really like 30 seconds and we're over. So let me just say good night to everybody. Good night, Rebecca. It was great having you.
Good night, Ellen. Thank you.
And if you want any information about Rebecca, the book, Kailash, the artist, the art project, Alan, 805-687-2053, 805-687-2053. We love you. God bless you. Good night. Come again. We love you.